Today it's quite a rainy day here at Elmwood Park Zoo, so I wonder where it's like where you guys are. But today we have a very, another one of my favorites here at the zoo. You guys are going to be very surprised. If you've watched any of my segments before, you know that I like to talk about turtles. And today we're going to be talking about a tortoise. Now you may remember, if you've been watching, that we've met a tortoise before, but today we're going to meet a totally different tortoise. So you may think that you know an awful lot about turtles and tortoises now, but I'm going to teach you a little bit more. So today we have my very special friend. This here is Hungry Jack. Now Hungry Jack is a pancake tortoise. Now you might be thinking, Marissa, he does not look like a pancake to me. But these guys get their name because they have a very flat body. So if you take a look, you might notice that our friend Hungry Jack, the pancake tortoise, has a super flat shell. And if you guys have been watching our previous episodes, you may have noticed that our friend Sandy, she has a very big shell. Big rounded, almost looks like an upside down bowl. And you may have noticed even some of our turtle friends, right, like Dude the box turtle, they had a very round shell. If you're looking at this shell, you might be reminded of our friend Woody, who had a pretty flat shell, and that helped her swim really well. Now, Hungry Jack does not live in water. He is a tortoise, right? So I want you guys to remember what you know about tortoises. We know that they are land dwelling. So we know that if a tortoise is called a tortoise, then chances are they like to live on land. And that's where our friend Hungry Jack likes to live. Now these guys are from very arid, which is very dry, kind of desert-like savanna areas. So when we're talking about the savanna, we're talking about a lot of different places around the world, but when we're looking at a pancake tortoise, we're going to be talking about the savannas of Africa. Now, these guys are native to southern Kenya and north and eastern Tanzania. So they're only from a very small portion of a part of Africa, right? So they're only from 2 separate countries, and they're found in really small areas. Now you can tell Hungry Jack here is on the move a little bit, so we're going to watch him cruise around. Now Hungry Jack is a little bit different than some of our tortoise friends. And some of our turtle friends. These guys are actually really great climbers. So he might be demonstrating a little bit of this as he's moving around, which is pretty awesome. Looks like he's kind of dead set on going in a certain direction today. Remember, turtles and tortoises, they have a great inside GPS system. So they're great at figuring out where they're going, where they want to go, and how they're going to get there. Now, Hungry Jack is particularly good at climbing over rocks. So I do have, it looks like he might be interested in salad today, so we'll see if he's going to hop on over to eat some breakfast. There he goes. So Hungry Jack is in fact a tortoise. So remember, we know that tortoises live on land, but we also know that tortoises tend to be mostly herbivorous, right? And if you guys have been watching this, I'm sure you guys are professionals, you know exactly what an herbivore is, but just in case you forget, an herbivore is an animal that only eats plants. So we won't see Hungry Jack munching on worms or trying to hunt down other animals, right? He's only going to be eating salad and plants. Now in the wild where he's from, there's not going to be a lot of leafy greens. Remember, I said he lives in a very arid or dry climate. So where he's from, I want you to think kind of desert-like, not very rainforesty, right? So where he's from, he won't necessarily have big green lettuce chunks like this. He's going to have a lot more dry grasses, maybe lots of succulents. You may have succulents at home, right? And they're going to be eating a lot of those kinds of plants. But whatever they're eating, it's going to be plant-based. They may eat some veggies or some fallen fruit. Looks like he's maybe done with his breakfast coming back to it. So Hungry Jack here, he's definitely only going to be eating plants, right? And you can watch him, maybe I'll try to munch on his bowl here. But you can see when he opens his mouth up, he doesn't have any teeth in his mouth. He just has a beak. And he's going to be using that beak to chomp down on that lettuce. We feed Hungry Jack a salad every single day. He also gets a lot of hay as well, right, which is dried grasses. So he's going to be getting all those yummy nutrients from his diet. Now, Hungry Jack here, you can kind of tell by looking at his coloration where he's from too. So he blends in really well with his surroundings where they're native to, because he's got that nice pattern that's going to help camouflage him, but also that coloration, right? He's a nice light tan color. That's going to help him blend in with his surroundings. Now, one of the Pancake tortoise's best abilities and how they're going to survive in the wild is that these guys are able to smush down into really small rocky crevices, really small dark areas where they're going to hide out. So unlike a lot of other turtles and tortoises that are going to maybe hunker down in their shells, you might notice that Hungry Jack's shell here is pretty small. So for him, instead of hiding in his shell, he's going to hide in a cave. So it looks like that's what our friend Hungry Jack is doing right now. So for them, he's going to be hiding in a rocky space, in a small, dark area, similar to a cave, except for he's not going to hide in a great big cave. He's going to hide in something similar to this, a really dark space. And that is going to allow him to make sure that he can stay safe from predators. So we're going to actually, even though he loves being in here, we're going to pull him out so you guys can get a good look at him. Chances are he's probably going to go, maybe you guys can vote in the comments to see if you think he's going to go right back into this cave. But instead of hiding in their shell, they're going to run and hide. So Pancake tortoises are actually the fastest tortoise on the planet. They are super speedy, and that nice flat shell helps them be super quick. So just like that flat shell helped our friend Woody be really great at swimming quickly, that flat shell is going to help our Pancake tortoise friend Hungry Jack really move super quick. So he's going to run into a small crevice, a rock crevice or cave, and that's where he's going to hide out and stay protected from predators, right? So in the wild, these guys are going to have certain predators, right? Maybe some birds of prey, maybe some small carnivores, right? Things that might want to try to munch these guys up. But unfortunately, one of their biggest threats in the wild, and these guys, remember we've been talking a little bit this week about the IUCN Red List, right? There's that organization that helps figure out how are animals doing in the wild, you know, how many of them are left. And our friend Hungry Jack here and Pancake tortoises, these guys are considered to be vulnerable, right? So that means that they are threatened by certain things like habitat loss, but also one of the biggest issues with these guys is because they're so unique and they're Pancake tortoises, they have a really specialized shell that helps them survive. They've become super popular in the pet trade, right? And remember, we've been talking a lot about reptiles and keeping reptiles as pets. And a lot of times, these guys take a lot of extra care, right? Now, unfortunately, people are illegally taking these guys out of the wild, which is no good at all, right? And that is negatively impacting their population. So our friend Hungry Jack here, unfortunately, their population is how we call vulnerable, right? Which means that they're threatened by different factors, particularly by people, right? Fortunately, we're building homes on their habitats, and we are also taking them out of the wild to keep them as pets. Just a reminder, guys, that wild animals never make good pets, right? Now, the cool thing about our Pancake tortoise here is their shell. So we talked about how flat it is, right, and how it's different from other tortoises because it isn't rounded. But there's another really great feature of their shells. These guys are, in fact, they have holes in their shells. Now, we've been talking a little bit before about how other turtles and tortoises, their shell is one big kind of bony piece, right? It's a part of their backbone, and it's the same thing for our friend Hungry Jack here. He is attached to the shell, right? And you can kind of see on the sides here too, it wraps all the way around. So he's totally wrapped in this shell, right? He's born with it, and he'll have it on till his very last day. But for Hungry Jack here, he actually has small holes in his shell. And that's gonna allow him to be super flexible, right? It's gonna allow him to smush down into those small spaces, and that's gonna help him squeeze in and hide from predators, right? So that's gonna really help these guys stay alive. Now, for these guys, remember, we call the top of their shell a carapace, and the bottom of their shell we call a plastron. So real quick, if you wanna take a look at the bottom of their shell, it has a really great pattern on it. Now, Hungry Jack, he just turned 6 years old in February. His birthday was February 1st, and these guys are going to live to be 35 years old. Now, that might not seem like a whole lot. These guys aren't the longest living tortoises on the planet, right? We know that some tortoises can live to be over 200 years old, which is crazy. But for our friend Hungry Jack here, they're going to max out at about 35 years, and that's normally in human care, right? In the wild, these guys are probably only going to live to be about maybe 20 to 25 years old. Now, Hungry Jack here, he is a male pancake tortoise. He won't be laying any eggs, but if he were a female, these guys can lay one egg at a time, but they can lay eggs throughout the year. So they can probably lay a few eggs every year. All right, guys, so now that we've learned a little bit about the basics of our pancake tortoise friend, Hungry Jack, we're going to be answering some more questions from you guys. So it looks like Luke and Gray want to know how sharp his claws are. Oh, great question. So let's see if we can get a close-up of those claws. They are super sharp, and you might notice that they're pretty long, and they play a really important role in helping to dig in and make sure that they can stay in that rocky crevice. So even if they're hiding and something reaches in to try to grab them out, they're going to use those claws to dig into the rock and make sure that nothing can pull them out, which is pretty awesome. All right, so it looks like Brianna and is that maybe Joey or, yeah, so Brianna and Joey want to know how much time does he spend in his shell a day? Great question. So he's going to spend his entire life in his shell, right? But remember, even though he's not going to hide in his shell, right, so he can't fully pull into his shell. So even though he's going to spend his whole life kind of wearing his shell, he's not going to be popping his head in and living in his shell. Instead, he's going to live in those rocky caves, right? And he's probably going to spend almost 22 to 23 hours a day in that cave. These guys are only going to spend about an hour a day outside of their cave, and during that time, they're going to be out in the sun, they're going to be baking any bacteria off of their shell, and they're going to be looking for food, right? Which is pretty great. So let's see if he's interested in any of his salad again. He might not be. He might be full for this morning. Let's see. So Liam and Ronan want to know, how long do they live? And do they like tomatoes? Oh, great question. So they live 35 years in human care. That seems to be their lifespan. Remember Hungry Jack here? He's only 6 years old right now, so he's got a lot of life ahead of him. And do they like tomatoes? You know what? I don't know if we give Hungry Jack here too many tomatoes, but I am absolutely sure that he does, in fact, like them a lot. Valerie wants to know, is he nocturnal? Well, Valerie, he's not nocturnal. He does need the sun, right? These guys do live in a warm climate, which is important because they're cold-blooded animals, right? So for these guys, they do need the sun to warm up, or a warm climate. Now, Hungry Jack here, he's what we actually call crepuscular. So he's going to be more awake during the dawn and dusk periods of the day. And that's when he's going to be roaming around the most. So Paul wants to know, do they have any predators? They sure do, Paul. But unfortunately, their number one predator in the wild are actually humans, right? So unfortunately, we are taking them out of the wild because they are so unique and people would like to have them as pets. So whenever you get a pet, just make sure that it never comes out of the wild. That's a really important and easy way to help out wildlife. Oliver wants to know, is Jack endangered? Oh, great question. So although Hungry Jack is not currently endangered, they are threatened by extinction, right? And they're considered vulnerable, which means they could potentially become endangered someday if we don't do a better job of making sure we help protect them in the wild. Carla wants to know, does he drink water or does he get his water from what he eats? Amazing question, Carla. So he is going to be getting the majority of his water from what he's eating, but he absolutely does drink water. And we actually will soak our friend Hungry Jack here, which means we'll put him in a little bath. And that's the way he's going to be absorbing some of that water as well. So that's another way that we make sure he stays really hydrated. All right, so Reed wants to know, why is he called Hungry Jack? So Hungry Jack is actually a pancake brand, so we like to, we're just paying homage to his pancake name.
Reed also asked if he raced in the turtle race.
Oh, Reed, did you want to know if he raced in the turtle race? He sure did, and you know what? He lost, which is Maybe a little embarrassing for him because he is the fastest tortoise on the planet and he lost a turtle race. So if you haven't seen our turtle race video, I highly suggest you look it up. It's I'm pretty sure it's on YouTube on our channel. And Hungry Jack did not win. Melissa wants to know, how old is he? So he is 6 years old. And Melissa wants to know, is he a good swimmer? So not particularly. He is not a very good swimmer. He's a much better climber, right? So although he probably could swim if he needed to just a little bit, he is going to definitely rely on his climbing abilities. Kira wants to know, how fast can he run? You know what, Kira, I'm not sure if anybody's ever actually timed these guys running. I'm sure someone has because they know that they're the fastest, but I don't know the exact speed. So maybe we'll do some research and let you know in the comments a little bit later. Oh, Scarlett, you want to know if Jack is nice? Oh, he's pretty nice. To be honest, he probably doesn't care too much about humans. These guys are pretty solo. I mean, he's very happy living his own lifestyle. He spends the majority of his life in his cave, remember? So I would say that he's pretty nice. He has never bitten anybody, but remember that for any animal, they do have a mouth. They absolutely can bite. I would consider Hungry Jack nice, but I don't really know if he really wants to make any friends. Laura wants to know, how big can he get? So these guys can get much bigger. So he's relatively small. He'll probably keep growing and probably reach maturity around 10. Now these guys, they can get to be about 10 inches on their carapace, probably somewhere between 7 to 10 inches. So he's going to get a little bit bigger. All right, so Stella wants to know, does Jack make any noises? He does. He hisses. So when he gets a little mad, he lets out kind of a hiss. And that's how we know that maybe he's a little bit unhappy. He's so excited to get into that cave today, but I want to make sure you guys get a good look at him before he lives in his cave for the rest of the day. So Lisa wants to know, how much food do they eat a day? Good question, Lisa. So these guys are going to be eating about a salad a day. So you can kind of see that this is his salad. He gets approximately 25 grams of salad a day, and I think we said that 25 grams before is about the same weight as a slice of bread. So he gets about a slice of bread weight of salad every day. Rebecca wants to know, how can you tell the males from the females? That's a great question, Rebecca. So it's actually pretty tough. These guys aren't super what we call sexually dimorphic. It's a little harder to tell with these guys, but we determine that via a blood test. Sometimes the males have larger tails, but it can be a challenge too. All right, so let's see. What other questions do we have? So Katie wants to know, how hard is his shell? That's a great question, Katie. So I know we talked a little bit how it's a little different than some other turtles and tortoises, but it's still pretty hard. So it is still bone. So his actual shell, the plates that are in here, they are very hard. They just have some holes in between each little piece that allows him to be more flexible. So even though he probably can't fold in half and touch his toes, that he's still a pretty flexible tortoise and that he can kind of squish down and move into really small crevices. You guys have some really great questions today. You guys are going to be turtle and tortoise experts after this. So it looks like Joey, Jillian, and Julia want to know, what is his birthday? Great question. So his birthday is February 1st. He just turned 6 years old a few months ago. So he's still fairly young. Remember, he's going to live to be about 35 years old. So Kim wants to know, what is his favorite food? All right, Kim, so he actually really loves, I don't know if you guys watched yesterday, but our friend Jackie, the prehensile-tailed skink, she ate a hibiscus flower, and we gave one to Hungry Jack the other day, and he chomped it up. He absolutely loved it. So I think that that might be his favorite food. And it looks like that Blake wants to know, how can we help tortoises? Blake, that's a great question. So there's all kinds of ways that you can help tortoises. The very first way that you can help tortoises at home is just learning about them. So the more you know about a species, the more you're able to help them out, right? That's one of the first ways, is to get educated about the animals that you care about. The next way you can help them out is to make sure that if you really want a pet tortoise, that you do all the research. Remember, tortoises live a really long time. Hungry Jack's gonna live to be at least 35. So these guys can live a very long time, and you always want to make sure that you're not getting an animal that comes out of the wild, right? Because that's what's really hurting these guys in the wild. So for our friend Hungry Jack here, it's always important to make sure that that you get pets that are, either raised in captivity or bred specifically to be pets, right? We don't want to take animals out of the wild. Another great way you can help is looking up some organizations. There's some great turtle organizations out there that can really, that do a lot of great work. They do a lot of field work, which means that they're restoring habitat and they're saving tortoises from the pet trade. So I definitely encourage you to look up turtle and tortoise conservation organizations, and then they're a great way to, if you want to donate to help out, that's a great place to donate too. But remember, step one's always learning. Janet wants to know, was he born in captivity? I believe he was. I'm pretty sure he came from another zoo, or another facility that breeds these guys. So he absolutely was. So he was never in the wild. Although, even though they're not born in the wild, remember, they're still wild animals. He still knows to go and hide in small rocky crevices. He has a lot of those habits still. So he sure was. All right, so Sophia wants to know, do they come in other colors? So Sophia, they're going to have a little bit of different variation. They might have a little bit of a different pattern, but for the most part, they're always going to be kind of this yellowish and dark brown color. So this is, for the most part, what they're going to be. Great question, guys. Oh man, you guys have some awesome questions today. So I think we're coming up on our last few questions here. Now remember, if you haven't seen some of our other turtle or tortoise episodes, feel free to follow us on YouTube. Go check out some of those. And make sure to like and subscribe and check us out. Hungry Jack is pretty new to our ambassador animal collection, so he's still learning how to be an educator, which is pretty awesome. But thanks so much for tuning in. It looks like our last few questions here. Alice wants to know, does he eat birthday cake? Great question, Alice. So he would probably not eat birthday cake, at least not the kind of birthday cake that I like to eat. So Hungry Jack here, when we give him a birthday cake, it's definitely something that has maybe flowers in it, or maybe some lettuce and veggies, so it's definitely a little bit different. So it looks like Siona wants to know, does he have any babies? He does not have any babies. He is a solo bachelor. He lives all by himself, and I think he likes it that way. So he does not have any babies, but maybe someday. All right, guys, well, thanks so much for tuning into Zoo School Live today. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks for checking out Hungry Jack and learning even more about turtles and tortoises. There's always something new to learn, so thanks for tuning in with me today, guys, and have a great rest of your day.